we call suffering today is nothing compared to what those Christians suffered back then. When those times of trials do come our way, how can we know that God is still doing something in our lives? This brings me to the first point. Seek Jesus in the middle of the storm. We struggle with times of adversity because we are focused on the circumstance. We're looking at our life through our carnal human eyes. And this focus is always distorted because we've taken God out of the equation. We have our own idea of what our life should look like. And when things happen that's outside of this idea, it becomes devastating because now our plans are ruined. My marriage was supposed to last, and now I'm getting a divorce. I wasn't supposed to have miscarriages. I planned to have children. Burying my own child was not how I saw my life unfolding. I'm not supposed to be unemployed. This move that I made was designed to make my life better, but now I'm miserable. What am I supposed to do with this, Lord? When adversity comes our way, we must never calculate the situation without adding in the faithfulness of God. Hard times will come, and I'm certainly not saying that we will not grieve, or that we will not cry, or we will not experience heartache and pain during these times. We're human, and we have feelings, and these things hurt. But while we're suffering, we need to seek God. And while we're asking him to remove the pain, because of course we're going to do that, we need to also ask to be able to see the experience from his perspective. Because he may choose not to remove you from the situation, or it may take longer than you feel you can endure. We must seek Jesus diligently at all times, but especially during times of pain and struggle, as if he is our last resort, as if he is the difference between life and death, because he is. We must learn how to find God in troublesome times so that we may help others do the same. Let's take the woman with the issue of blood. Here's a woman who suffered from a hemorrhaging medical condition for 12 years. There's no doubt in my mind that she was frail and weak. She probably was anemic, had other medical conditions secondary to that. She most certainly was alone and a social outcast because according to Levitical law, women who were bleeding this way were unclean up until 7 days after they stopped bleeding. She'd been bleeding nonstop for 12 years. She was unclean, and everything and everyone she would touch would become unclean as well. So getting to Jesus on this day would prove to be a challenge. She had to get to him without being noticed by those who knew her situation. For then she would be exposed, and she would be kept from him out of concern of making him unclean. She really was not different from the lepers of that time. But she was determined because Jesus was her only chance at a healing. She did not let the law, the crowd, or her fears stop her from going through and getting to her blessing. And Jesus is well able to hear our small cries in the midst of a crowd of other cries. He is so gentle and compassionate. He loves us so much. We just need to ask him for help. And looking away from our circumstance and ourselves, we need to ask him to help us to see him. Now, God does not promise that we will understand every sinister or evil event that directly or indirectly affects our lives. I know I'll never understand why grown men want to sleep with preteen girls, why children are raped and murdered and left in suitcases in shallow graves, why drive-by shootings take the lives of our sons and our daughters. Why are babies born with HIV? Why are there school shootings? Why is there murder-homicides? I don't think I'll ever understand. But only in eternity will we understand some of the mysterious ways of God. Only then will we be able to grasp the significance of his eternal plan. God does not plan evil. Let me make that clear. But he will use its harsh results to shape our lives and hearts so that they become reflections of his mercy. No suffering comes our way, but that which God has purposed for our good and for his glory. God may not cause all things, but he does cause all things to work together for good for those that are called according to his purpose. After seeking Jesus, the next phase is to find purpose and accept God's plan in our suffering.
Come on now.
In order to find this purpose and accept it requires discernment. So this is the reason why seeking Jesus first is imperative. It's easy to be a faith giant when things are going well. But one plan God has for our lives is for us to learn how to face adversity with unwavering faith. Others are watching, and how we respond to times of trouble can mean the difference between someone getting to know Christ or not. There's a song, one of my favorite songs, by a gentleman by the name of Calvin Bernard Roan, that simply says, "Live in me, Jesus. Have your way in me. For I may be the only Jesus that this generation will ever see." Luke 22, 31 and 32 tells us about a conversation that Jesus had with Peter at the Last Supper. Jesus tells Peter, "Satan has asked to have all of you, to sift you like wheat." Notice what he says next. "But I have pleaded in prayer for you that your faith should not fail." Do you notice that Jesus didn't tell Peter, "I'm going to not let Satan do this," or "I'm going to protect you from this"? He's telling him, "Hey, look, this is going to happen, but I got your back." When wheat is sifted, the process of sifting wheat is a purification process. So you separate the wheat from the chaff. It is a process to separate the good part from the bad part. Take away the bad and just be left with the beneficial, the useful part. Jesus knows that Satan desires to sift Peter like wheat to separate the good, to get him on his team. But God has a different plan and outcome, and that is why he is allowing the sifting process. God desires to sift out the bad and conform Peter to his image, because he has a great work for him to do on behalf of the kingdom of God. God has an agenda, and if our suffering and adversity is a catalyst to the execution of the plan, then we must go through. God's plan will always prevail. Great change has come out of personal tragedies. Very well-known story. It was back in July of 1981 in Hollywood, Florida, where Reve Walsh went to Sears with her 6-year-old son, Adam. And being a typical 6-year-old boy, he's walking past the video game area, and there's young boys playing this new video game, and he asked his mom if he could stay there and watch the video games. It's 1981. She feels it's harmless. She's going to be a couple rows over looking at some lamps, so she allows him to stay. Little does she know that was going to be the last time that she saw her baby boy alive. She came back about 5-10 minutes later, and Adam was gone. Turns out there was a fight that broke out near the video games, and the security guard came up and put all the boys out of the store. And at some point while little 6-year-old Adam was outside of Sears, somebody snatched him and killed him. For they found his severed head several weeks later, miles and miles away from home. So, at that point, devastation set in for John and Reve Walsh. This was their only son. The Walshes could have retreated from life. They could have divorced. They could have never had any more children. They could have done absolutely nothing but feel sorry for themselves and ask, "Why us?" However, even though they were naturally devastated by their son's murder, they got to work. They campaigned for better provisions to help finding missing children. They helped found the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And as you know, John Walsh went on to host the TV show America's Most Wanted, where over 1,000 criminals have been brought to justice. In addition, as a result of Adam's horrific murder and his parents' determination to not let his death be in vain, the Adam Walsh Child Protection Act was signed on July 26, 2006. This was the 25th anniversary of the day that he went missing. This is legislation that organizes sex offenders so that they're required to report their whereabouts at all times, and if they don't, it's a felony, and they're back in prison. Furthermore, Code Adam, I'm sure you've seen the little symbols on the front of like the Walmart doors and several doors. It's an internationally recognized missing child safety program for retail stores in all federal buildings.